Welcome to the No Name Brand Podcast. My name is Sashka Hanarappel, actress, singer, dancer, turned brand marketing, sales, and advertising strategist who brands your soul. And each week I bring you an inspiring person or message to help you discover your undergod, turn up your leadership notches, challenge the status quo, because you're fast and furious with a powerful message to share with the world. Thank you for taking time out with me today, and without further ado, let's get our creative and wisdom juices flowing. In today's weekly podcast, I'm super excited to be talking to our next guest who's gone to hell and back. She's the author of the book, Bent Back into Shape, Beating Addiction Through Yoga. She's a mama, business entrepreneur, and was convinced for the longest time that she was a terrible person. She was dishonest, deceitful, judgmental, cynical, and sought to shift her self-loathing by trying to blame others for her mistakes. Today, she's worked through those shadows, an inevitable 20 years in the making, and is here today to share with us her real and vulnerable journey, from addicted to everything outside of herself to everything within herself. Please help me in welcoming the incredible Esther Nagle. Hello, Esther.
Hello, Sashka. Lovely to speak to you.
Lovely to speak to you too. We can see each other as well whilst we're talking together. But our listeners are just listening. So share with us, where are you in the world today?
I'm in a little valley in South Wales called the Rhondda Valley. It's a very green valley. It's very nice. It was very grey when I was growing up because it's an old mining community. So there was a lot of debris from the mines left. But it's very green and lots of trees and lots of beautiful hills that I love to walk up.
Oh, wow. It's nice to be surrounded by nature and green hills. Yeah. It's good. Now, I touched on your journey just a bit in the introduction, which deals with addiction. Your addiction to alcohol, untreated mental health problems, and non-existent coping strategies. It's no wonder you felt lost. What catapulted you from feeling sorry for yourself to transforming yourself?
It was a bit of a slow process. So it started in 2013 and it's still growing now. But in 2013, I had what is the official title is the worst year of my life. And I feel like I ought to trademark that. That year started on a real high. I was 40 that year and full of optimism that my 40s were going to be amazing. I had a great job. I was happy in a new relationship and I was looking forward to the future. And then there were enormous problems in the new job that I had in the organization that basically rocked my world completely and left me very insecure about my job. We discovered that one of my close family members had been hiding an alcohol problem from us for a long, long time and was going into complete free fall with suicide attempts. There was a real unraveling. And so I was sort of watching all this happen and thinking, but hang on, that should be me. And so trying to deal with that as a member of the family and also trying to deal with what was going on inside my head in response to all that as well. And obviously coping with it all by getting drunk. And we also found out that my mum had cancer, which was deeply traumatic. And she's fine now, but we'd already lost one brother to cancer. And so that kind of tore me apart, really. And I was going through a lot of issues with my ex. We were having a very bitter argument over issues with our son. So that was very nasty. And I started a new job in the summer and I felt very out of my depth, like I shouldn't have gone into this new job. I was feeling completely lost. And this one night, after a training session that we'd been away for a couple of days for a training course. And I came back feeling quite good about the job. It was an exciting job. It's one that a couple of years previously I would have absolutely adored. And I was listening to my favorite album of the time, an album by my favorite band. And I've been completely obsessed with this album for a couple of weeks now. You may have seen on Facebook, I'm completely obsessed with the same band who've just brought out another new album. It's Queens of the Stone Age. And this album is called Like Clockwork. And there was one song on that album that it got under my skin such a lot. And it was a song called I Appear Missing. And it was the singer talking about how he felt when he felt like his life was falling apart. and I was listening to this song on repeat, and I suddenly sat up, glass of wine in one hand, cigarette in the other, and oh my God, that's me. And I had this sudden revelation of, I had this American rock star basically telling me how I felt, and I hadn't realized. So that triggered something in my head that I didn't really quite know how to process. And a few weeks later, I gave up the job in floods of tears. I mean, I really felt like I was falling apart. And I accepted that I was almost certainly in the midst of a breakdown. Spent a few months falling apart, and then decided that this was a really good opportunity to train to teach yoga, because I knew I needed to do something other than sit at home getting drunk. And I couldn't go back to working full time because my sanity my state of mind just wouldn't allow me to cope with it. So it was a strange year, a strange year which started with hope, fell apart completely for most of the year, and then ended with hope, because by the end of the year, I decided that I was going to train to be a yoga teacher instead. At that time, I still didn't really know that I had such a serious drink problem. I just knew that I needed to change my life. I didn't really realize the extent to which I needed to change my life. So I thought I needed a new job.
That's amazing. What was your word for that year? Can you remember?
God. Well, at the start of the year, my word was like future. It was all looking towards the future. But I think that the overall feeling is breakdown. Really, when I look back at that year, it's just chaos. It was a year of chaos. But in that breakdown, that was the breakdown, the unraveling that had to happen. So I look back on that year now as being one of the best years. If all of those things hadn't happened in such quick succession, I might have dealt with them all. If they'd happened one at a time, I would have probably kind of dealt with them the way I dealt with everything else, very badly, but I would have managed to struggle through. But because it all happened at the same time, I just couldn't cope. So it was an unraveling year. It was a vital unraveling.
That's amazing. And it all started with Queen of the Stone Age.
Yes.
Yeah, that is so cool. I absolutely love that. I love, not just love, like I adore comeback stories, like go from down at the bottom and you work your way up. And the thing that helped whomever go from like down in the dumps or in the hole, whatever, and come back out. In your case, it was yoga.
It was. Yes.
It was yoga. And starting with Queen of the Stone Age and wanting to become an instructor is such, it doesn't really explain the entirety of what you're actually doing there as an instructor. No. Tell us how you got into yoga and what it's done for you.
Well, funnily enough, my journey with yoga has also got a musician at the start of it.
Oh, wow. How cool is that?
For most of my life, I've been an enormous Beatles fan, and I just fell completely in love with George Harrison when I was in my late teens, and became completely obsessed with not just his music, but with everything that he kind of did with his life. And so George Harrison got into Eastern philosophy, Eastern practices, Eastern religions. So it was inevitable that I was going to try yoga. I've looked into Hare Krishna as well. I've looked into all these different things that he did following his path, as much as it's possible for me to follow George Harrison's footsteps. But I got into yoga because basically George Harrison did it, I'm going to do it. And so I started going to yoga classes properly about 7 or 8 years ago when I was off work with an asthma attack. I was a heavy smoker at the time and also asthmatic. So instead of giving up smoking, I decided to go to yoga classes. And I really enjoyed those yoga classes, but it became about the exercise for me. I became from going to yoga class, so I started walking, and from that I became I think my addictive tendencies kicked in, and I became obsessed with fitness and wanting to improve my body. You know, I was smoking and drinking and taking drugs, but I could be healthy if I was exercising. It was almost like a bulimic kind of approach to things. Do as much exercise as possible, it cancels everything else out. So yoga was just another way of keeping my body healthy. And I thought it was helping my mind as well. But when push came to shove, it didn't really, because I was going to my yoga classes and then going home where there was a bottle of wine waiting for me. Or I was going to the pub and I was smoking and I was drinking. So it obviously wasn't giving me everything I needed. But I knew that it was something I wanted to pursue more. I wanted to go into it more. I wanted to teach it one day. I've got now 3 teaching qualifications. Teaching is in my blood. My parents were teachers when I was conceived. They met at teacher training college. I was born to be a teacher. So I always knew I was going to teach it. And when I decided the only way I can actually survive 2013 was to go and become trained to be a yoga teacher, I thought I was going to learn to teach basically an exercise class. So when I started my training, I went in there thinking, I know all the postures, I know all this, I'm just getting a certificate. I really went in with this huge arrogance that I knew it all already. Within about 3 hours of the first session, I realized I knew nothing at all about yoga. It was amazing. Everything I thought I knew was stripped away, and I went in as a beginner. And I learned about philosophy. I learned about compassion. I learned about how to become a better person. I didn't realize yoga was about who you are. I thought it was about what you did with your body. And I learned to breathe. After 7 years of going to yoga classes, I'd never learned to breathe. I'd actually resisted it an awful lot in my classes. And it was only when I started to learn that I realized how much I'd resisted it in the past.
Wow.
And it was actually, to a very large extent, it was that learning to breathe that saved me, because it helped me to calm down. It gave me those coping strategies that was so missing from my life. It gave me that ability to just step back from a situation instead of wading into a thing with all guns blazing, ready for a fight against anyone and everyone. I could step back from a situation and think, right, okay, how am I going to deal with it? And I'd never had that before. I'd always just gone, right, I need to fight. And then 3 hours later thinking, oh God, why did I say that?
I regret that one.
But yeah, it was quite incredible. I mean, my tattoo that I got last year, which I know your listeners won't be able to see, but it actually says breathe. I got that done in India last year because it is that important to me. Well, breathing is important to everybody, but breathing well is life-changing. And you said about being called a yoga teacher or a yoga instructor doesn't cover what I do. I don't actually like referring to myself as a yoga teacher, because even though what I teach people is yoga, I think that when I say I'm a yoga teacher, people have the same expectations that I used to have, that it's an exercise class and that all it is about keeping your body healthy. And it absolutely doesn't cover what I want to share with the world.
That is amazing. That is so, well, I'm guilty of that one. Like yoga, it's not strenuous. My mind is always like in this race. And for me, my yoga, in inverted commas, is dancing, because I switch off. I completely switch off with the choreography. Yeah. Whereas with yoga, I have to be here, present, and breathing and learning how to breathe. And then I realize, like you said, I don't breathe. Like when I get to a moment or I get excited or adrenaline, I just stop breathing. It's the weirdest, and I don't stop breathing. I'd be dead by now. It's like very short breaths. It's not coming from my body. I pretty much think the same with yoga. It's like, I don't want to do any exercise.
Yeah, I mean, most people in the West, certainly that's what if you do a Google search on yoga, what you come up with is people in various contortions. It's the impression you get that it's all body focused. And people come and they'll say, I'm too fat, I can't do yoga. I'm too old. Yes, you can. There's always something that you can do that will help you. And maybe you're never going to be able to tie your legs around your head, but that doesn't matter.
That would be pretty cool. I see friends where they posted like photo albums of, and I remember or recall when they asked, like in social media, are there any yoga classes close by, blah, 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 blah. And there's been a few friends in my social media circle showing their journey from when they started to where they are now, and their posture, and going from also addiction and not knowing where to go and having a purpose now. And it's quite cool. I love it. Everyone needs that something to not just believe in something outside of them, but within themselves.
Yeah.
You speak about this in your book, Bend Back into Shape, Beating Addiction Through Yoga. I love the title, by the way.
It's great, isn't it? Yeah.
It's very catchy. I was like, oh, I like that. I like that, branding being here. So share with us why you felt you needed to write a book and how that process was writing the book.
Well, it was quite a funny experience. I mean, I wanted to write a book. I remember when I was about 8 or 9, getting some sheets of paper and making a book out of them, and deciding that one day I was going to write the next Narnia, because I was obsessed with Narnia when I was a kid.
Cool.
And so there's been this little part of me that has always wanted to write. And throughout like when I did my degree, whenever I've had anything to write, people have always said what a good writer I was. And when I started blogging, people said about my writing. So I've always had this thing, yeah, I'll write a book one day. And with my journey in the last few years, sort of decided, well, this is probably the book I'm going to write. It's going to be something around this. And last April or March, it might have been, one of my friends on social media announced that she was challenging herself to write 1,000 words a day because she wanted to write a book. So she invited people to join her. So I thought, right, okay, I can do this. Only, of course, I couldn't, because 1,000 words a day when you've just decided on a whim that you're going to do it is quite a challenge.
Yes.
So I wrote about 17,000 words over the course of the month. And then I was going to go to India. I went to India in May. I got invited to speak at a conference in May. And one of the women that I was going to be sharing a panel with, I connected with her and we spoke. And she told me that she'd written a book and that she was going to do a sort of soft launch of it at this conference. And I just said, oh, I started writing a book. I wish I'd finished it. Just conversationally. I didn't expect anything to come of it. And she just looked at me. She said, well, why don't you? So you've got a few weeks. I'm sure you can do it.
Oh, wow.
And because I'm a bit like, give me a challenge and I'll have a go. But yeah, right then. So she threw down the gauntlet. I picked it up. And then I went back to what I'd written and realized that most of it was absolutely unpublishable. And it was all the clearing of the stuff that was in my head that I needed to write, but nobody else ever needed to read. And that it would have caused some serious issues between me and some people if they read it. I had about 5 weeks. I spoke to an editor friend and I said, right, I've just decided on this crazy project. Can you help me? And she said, yes. And so I decided that I was going to basically come up with something. Fortunately, at the time, I decided I was off Facebook. I'd taken myself off Facebook for a month, so I didn't have that distraction. So for a week, I just spent an entire week writing and having a mini breakdown. At one point, I said to my editor, I can't do this. This is a stupid idea. I'm not doing it. And she said, right, send me everything you've got. I'll start editing it. Go for a walk. Take a few hours off. Just relax. So I did and went back to it. And it got written over a week. And there were a few blog posts that I added in to bump it up a bit as well. But it basically got written in a week and then it got edited and it got launched on the first day of the conference in India. It's been reworked a little bit since then. I've gone back to it and I've rewritten some parts of it in less of a frenzied manic state. And I'm actually in May, I spent a little bit of time on live stream reading some chapters of it aloud, which was the first time I'd ever done that. And while I was reading it aloud, I realized that there were some bits that I'm not entirely, I want to rewrite it a little bit more. But then that's because you could always do that, can't you?
Yeah.
You can keep going back as you're always changing. So I'm always, if I go back in a year, I want to rewrite it again. So I don't know if I should rewrite it or if it just means it's time to write another book.
That is so true. Thank you for your review of my book. I'm very pleased with it. I was sorry. I'm like, oh my God, that's so exciting. And I decided I'm going to do an audio because not everyone has time to read, even though my book is pretty easy. Well, quick to read, put it that way. But you have to think a lot.
Yes.
I thought, I'm going to do the audio like you said. And I've recorded everything and wanted to upload to wherever you're supposed to upload to. And it's not available in Austria. Oh, bugger. But like you were saying, so I'm just going to make a difference, not for a waste. But like you said, when you read it out aloud, I was the same. I'm like, that doesn't make sense. It's like, where the hell did that come from? Oh, anyway, I knew it wasn't perfect. Done is better than perfect. That's like my saying. You know, just do it, get it out there. Otherwise, you sit on it all the time.
Yeah.
And
I'm guilty of that. There's so many good ideas that I've had and so many blog posts I've started writing and then for whatever reason not finished. And I don't, it's gone now. The moment has passed or the inspiration has, I write something and it's very timely. It has to go out that morning or it makes no sense whatsoever. And I just let it go for perfectionism reasons, probably.
I wrote my blog post and then I start writing and like you say, like totally inspired. And then, I don't know, the kids come in and then I got to do this or someone needs to go to the doctor and then the inspiration's gone. I'm like, no.
Wouldn't it be wonderful if you could just like That's it. I'm not doing anything else. Inspiration has come. I have to act on it.
Leave me alone. I'm going into my cave.
Yes.
Oh my God. How did you go from down and out to starting your own business? I mean, what triggered you to go, you know what? I'm going to help others in recovery.
Well, it didn't really happen like that. I decided in my naivety that running a business was going to be easier than commuting to Cardiff and having a full-time job with all the security and stability and everything. But I was a single mum and I really struggled with getting the kids to school, getting out of everything that comes with rushing the kids to be in an office at 9 o'clock in the morning and how little time you have. And my original idea was, because I'd always worked in sort of like IT roles, I'd done admin, websites, social media, various really boring stuff as well. I was going to set up as a web designer and or do social media management or something like that. And I was playing around with that idea for a while. But then I decided, no, I want to be a yoga teacher, not really realizing that actually just teaching yoga classes is not a way to make money. So then I was going to look into, I trained to do some massage. I can do like a wellness thing because I thought I need to stay calm. That was the thing was for me, is I need a way to earn a living that actually helps me to stay calm. So helping other people to stay calm would be a really good way, because I'd have to make sure I was in a good place before I go and massage somebody. You know, you can't go and massage somebody when you're stressed. You can't teach a yoga class when you're really stressed. So that was my logic at the time. And then when I was doing my yoga teacher training, and I was just going to go for the kind of the workplace stress angle with it. But then I was talking to somebody, Angela Durrant, a singing coach, and we were talking, and we were just talking about the things I was doing. And she said, you know what, you got so excited when you're talking about your recovery and about your mental health and about your addiction and all that. You get so animated and passionate and excited by the whole journey. That's what you should do. And at first I was like, I'm not going out in public and talking about this. Are you crazy? But then I thought, well, actually, I've spent 20 years hiding this from the world. Why should I carry on hiding it? How is it helping anyone? How is it even helping me? And I dislike the fact that if you're an alcoholic or you're an addict, then you should feel shame about it. So I thought, well, if I go and talk about it, then I can help. Okay. So I'd been living with the shame of my addiction and hiding it from myself and from everybody else for so long that there's this huge culture of shame around addiction and this whole idea that you should stay anonymous. And I just thought that's wrong. In this day and age, we have better understanding of what addiction is. And I think that the whole anonymity, hide it away, be ashamed of it, I don't think it's a helpful idea for us as a society or for us as individuals. So I started putting out a few blog posts about it just to see what would happen, and started actually getting people taking notice. So I thought, well, I clearly have some work to do here then. And so that's how it was born. It was a very peculiar path, really, that I didn't expect. At no point did I make a conscious decision to do it. But now that it's there, I've actually tried a few times to move away from it because I have moments of panic around, do I want to be doing this? This is it's big, it's huge, it's scary. Do I really want to do it? But it always keeps reeling me back. I try and pull away, and actually this is what my soul needs me to do. So I have to keep coming back to it. So I've got to keep reminding myself, don't try running away. You don't want to, really.
I think that is so, I love how the universe, God, whatever, just gives you these little nudges. Just because even though a lot of people go, oh, I'm just going to try this out and put a few blog posts out there and nothing happens. And it might be that is the way to go, but it just wasn't that clear. But it was really clear for you because it was like it was being received. It's pretty cool. I love the way the universe just nudged you, kind of like, go, Esther, go. You can do this. There's people that need this.
Yes. So yeah, it's good to, and when I was reading your book, that came through that most of the answers to the questions I was coming up with were, yeah, I'm on the right path. A few little tweaks to be made maybe, but yeah, there's no getting away from this.
I love it. I love it. It's like, all right, I'm destined for this one.
Yes.
Okay, anyway, that's fine. Oh, man. What brings you pure joy in your life? What could you not live without?
Music, mountains, sea, nature. So being in nature, mountains, and I've always lived near mountains. About 11 years ago, I started walking, and that was part of mental health recovery as well. That was after my brother died. I started walking in the mountains, and that being on top of a mountain, having a beautiful view to look at, that's the closest I can think of to being in heaven. Being by the sea as well, just so touches my soul. The movement of the waves, I find something very relaxing in that. And music. Music has been, I wanted to be a musician when I was a kid, play the violin. I don't anymore. I wish I did. I've got one, but I'm scared of it. But music has just been, it's just through me, like, it's just part of me. And, talking about when you're dancing, it stops you breathing sometimes. Well, I have that just listening to beautiful music. I was burst into tears. I just find myself giggling sometimes. I cannot stand still if I'm listening to music that I love, no matter where I am. It's embarrassing. But then I think, well, if something moves you that much, then don't resist it. So if I'm sitting on a train and I need to dance, I'll dance in my seat.
I love it. I'm the same. I'll just wander off somewhere to the side if I like some music and I might disturb someone. I'm just like, need to go do a little bit of a bounce here on the side. I also love music. It really inspires me. That's my creative facilitating think we are plugged into.
I think in another dimension somewhere, there's a version of me that is probably a professional musician.
Well, you maybe are already. You're already orchestrating a lot.
Yes.
It's just not in the form of music, like music, but there's different music that you're orchestrating now, a different melody that you're orchestrating for different people.
Yes.
What are you still wanting to achieve in your life and business?
I want to travel more than anything else. I want to see the world. So much it hurts. I always thought that I was going to be like an explorer. I mean, according to those tests you get on that come up on Facebook, I'm the explorer archetype, and I live 3 miles away from where I grew up, and it is a source of great frustration to me. So if a genie appeared in front of me now and offered me 3 wishes, the first one would be travel. The next one would be write a best-selling book about my traveling. So it's traveling and writing more is essentially really, I want to travel and I want to write more. Yeah, travel. I want to see the world. I've been to a couple of different countries. I want to live somewhere that isn't South Wales.
See different cultures and experiencing that. For your business, where do you want to go with your business?
More writing. I definitely want to write more books. I love the idea of relaxation, rehab, retreat sort of place where people in recovery could come and learn different ways of dealing with life in recovery, different coping strategies, help them to relax, to reset, to get to know themselves. So my dream rehab retreat would include yoga, it would include time in nature, it would include writing, it would include all the things that I love, lots of dancing as well. It would include all of those things because I think those things are amazing ways to connect with yourself, to connect with the world, and through your creativity, you can just achieve so much good for your soul. So I think those things, and maybe getting somebody to do art therapy and different other ways of helping people access their creativity to help them to develop those tools of knowing and being able to be with themselves.
Yeah. I would like to ask, we're nearing the end, and I have one more question that just sprung to mind. Spring, whatever. When you coming through recovery, there's a lot of addictions and you have to form new habits. Are you, or did you have self-recovery? Like you recovered yourself through different things that you were learning around you and about you, or did you have a coach with you? And what was the most poignant habit that you put into place that you changed things, like something like a mantra, was it just breathe? How did you recover yourself, and what can you offer to those? Because recovery is in everything, any addiction. It's, you're addicted to coffee, or you're addicted to emotional eating. There's so many different things that you can be addicted to.
Yeah. Well, I think that Very much a case of recovering yourself and getting to know yourself and being able to actually stand to be with yourself. A lot of my drinking and drugs, and I've had issues with, there's eating disorder issues in my past, there's love addictions, I probably could list several and some that are still relevant in my life. Like I have to work on minimizing how much coffee I drink. I have to work on regulating my sugar intake because there's still those addictions there. Social media is so it's developing that self-awareness and that acceptance of yourself. So I worked with my yoga teacher, my teacher who was guiding me through my teacher training. She wasn't my coach really, but she was setting the tasks that were allowing me to be my own coach. I basically was my own coach through this structure of yoga, the structure that yoga gave me, and through the looking at yoga philosophy and applying that to my life and to myself and the different practices that were helping me to be me, learn to be me and to accept me and to forgive myself and all the other things I had to do. In terms of kind of like habits that I had developed, the becoming more conscious of my breath. And in a moment when I'm feeling stressful now, making sure that I'm bringing that awareness to my breath and that I'm taking those deep breaths. So if I know I'm going into a situation where I'm likely to get stressed, I make sure that that breathe is at the forefront of my mind. That's why this tattoo is on my wrist. Because if I'm ever feeling really like everything is becoming too overwhelming, I can look at that and remember to breathe. Another thing that I started doing and that I do a lot, which I never ever used to be able to do before, is I've got more mirrors in my house than I've ever had before.
Wow.
And I put myself in the mirror and I smile. And I tell myself quite often, "You're bloody gorgeous, you are." Because I used to hate looking at myself in the mirror. And so now I will smile. I'll tell myself, I look at myself and I say, "I love you. You're amazing." And that was just, I could never have done that before. So it's that reinforcement of the fact that I like myself. I think that is really important because my addiction was born out of, as I suspect most people's are, it was born out of absolute self-loathing and a real feeling that I wasn't entirely sure I deserved to exist. And now I love myself.
That is amazing. See, right there, orchestrated, beautiful melody music. That's what we want to hear. We want to hear, I love myself. I love who I am. Oh, goosebumps from head to toe, man. And my tattoo is thoughts become things because I am so in my head. I've got a wild imagination. I've got a lot of creativity. So I can just be everywhere at the same time. And then I have to just remember it's just thoughts. It's not, and I can only make it real if I actually put it into action. So it's amazing that the mantras and things that we have, that we put into our lives to remind us of these things. Hello, I need to remind you something. So I have two questions that I ask all my guests near the end. And one of them is, how do you want to change the world or challenge the world doing what you do?
One of my biggest things is around the idea of labeling. And what we tell ourselves we are is what we believe that we are. And I would like to challenge the idea that you have to always call yourself an alcoholic. I know that there are brain changes that happen that mean that there is a physical change that happens in the brain of an alcoholic. And I am not disputing that. But as you said, thoughts become things. If you are telling yourself on a daily basis that you're an alcoholic, you are always going to feel the lack of alcohol in your life. When I was an alcoholic, I wouldn't tell myself that because I wouldn't accept it. And when I stopped drinking, I started immediately using the word in the past tense. I used to be an alcoholic because I don't feel a lack of alcohol in my life. I feel like I used to have a problem. If you used to be massively obese and then you lost the weight, you wouldn't keep referring to yourself as, "I am an obese person." You still have to watch what you eat and you still have to be careful not to end up obese again, but you don't have to always refer to yourself as that. And I just think that I understand why it helps some people, but at the same time, I think it's also not helping them because I think that they could create a new identity for themselves that is more helpful. And so that's my personal opinion. And I'm sure lots of people would disagree, but I think that you can label yourself something more positive.
Well, my opinion is that's not something that want to disagree with. We don't want to label anybody. I love that. Fill in the blank for me, your versions of my 3 values. Creativity for you is?
Creativity for me is, oh my gosh, I suppose this is supposed to be a word. Creativity for me is writing.
Cool. Passion for you is?
Mountains.
Love that. Wisdom for you is?
George Harrison.
What? George Harrison?
First thing that came into my head.
Oh, that's so cool. I love it.
Yeah, well, it's funny because with George Harrison, I think that a lot of his, looking back now at the way that his music has influenced me, he's kind of always been shining that light for me, lighting the way for me. So, and I can see now that the words that he sang, the things that he talked about were kind of showing me the path that I needed to go down. So yeah, that's interesting.
That's cool. I love that. Little epiphanies. Dong, oh, really? Cool.
And actually my next tattoo is going to be a George Harrison.
Oh, I love that. Esther, thank you so much for being with us here today and sharing with us your journey, your story, inspiration, motivation, and most importantly, breathe. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Much love and attention. Have an awesome day.
Thank you. You too.
And thank you to the listeners for being with us today. Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Dang, that was just supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. I enjoyed having you on board, and please do me and you a favor. Head on over to iTunes, SoundCloud, or Stitcher. Click subscribe, and a super bonus, leave your review and you stand a chance of being announced and advertised on the show. I'm always striving to ensure that your brand is uplifted and empowered. Remember, done is better than perfect. So be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and send in your feedback too. You're the absolute best. Keep rocking.